So today we're going to show you how to take apart the head on your TorqueLite IUXL low profile tool so that you can clean out the inside of it, inspect the head and the gear for damage, and you can re-lubricate it. Hey everyone, I'm Nick Francis. Thanks for tuning in. The IUXL tool is a low profile tool. It's used when there's not enough overhead clearance to use a square drive tool or something else, like if you're up next to a wing valve or underneath the ram on a BOP stack, it slides over and goes down. We recommend that you take it apart periodically to clean and re-lubricate the internal parts. There's only 3, so it only takes a couple quick steps, and I'll show you how right now. Okay, step 1, we're going to set the tool in a vise via this part of the head. Stick it in there, close it up. Now we're going to take these 2 shield screws out so that we can remove the shields, and take a look at the gear. This is a 5/64 wrench, a 632 flat socket cap. Pretty standard toolbox material. My back shield and my front shield. Now, when you take the gear out, these 2 positive drives are spring loaded, so we'll have to slide the gear out while using our 2 fingers on the back side to keep the positive drives in place. Just got to kind of get it out there enough to get your hands in there, and then as the gear comes out, the springs stay in. I'm going to set this to the side for just a second so that I can take out the positive drives, and you can see the 2 springs that hold each of them in place. Same thing there. Now, the head is completely apart. This is just one piece. Very simple, very durable. We like it. In order to clean it out, the parts that get dirty on the head are obviously the track. We went through that in a different video. And then the inside of this bore, it can get, the never sees can break down. It can get sand in there and dirt. So you just want to clean this off. If you have a parts washer, if you do a lot of this kind of work, you probably do. It's way easier in a parts washer. I just don't feel like moving my camera over there, so I'm just going to use this spray oil. Clean this thing down. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to the gear. Just going to spray it. This is nothing fancy. It's just Borsol mineral spirits. Just enough to clean it. Use a little air here if you want to blow it off. Now right now you've got 2 clean parts. You've got a clean head, you've got a clean gear. These 2 things with no lubrication should spin freely. It should feel like that. It should just go and go and go very easily. If you have any problems with the gear, you're going to want to look in these teeth. You just want to check them out, see if there's any edges, if there's any mushrooming, if there's any burrs, things like that that you might want to hit with a file or take down. This is your time to do it. Take a look in here, and then sometimes you will see some impressions from the positive drives that come in there. That's normal as long as there's no raised edges, there's no mushroom, there's no damage. As long as this isn't, rattling around in there, it should feel like this, like a bearing. There's no real slop to it or slack. So now once you're to this point, you've got the head off, you've got the gear out, everything's clean, you've inspected it for damage, you've made sure that everything works good, you're ready to put it back together. Take your lubrication and just lay it in this bore on that area. Not thick, just smooth, thinly. My dad told me a long time ago, you don't need a lot of never sees, you just need a nice thin layer. So that's what we're going for. Now the positive drives, I mentioned this before, you take some grease, some petroleum jelly, something like that. You stick it on the end of this spring just to help hold it onto this because it makes it easier to put together. You got a metal spring, you got a metal positive drive. They don't want to slide around and get loose. That just kind of helps them stick. And then you put it in there carefully. Squeeze them flat just to compress your springs and make sure they're where you want them to be. Do the same thing with this side. Little bit of grease in there on the springs. And just carefully put it in. Make sure you don't drop them onto the floor because then you got to start over. Now, the only other tricky part, other than taking the gear out, is putting it back in. Because it's a spring and it's rectangular, we're going to want to hold one side with our fingers and hold the other side with our gear, and we're going to kind of come in on, I'm holding down here, I'm gonna come in at an angle and then straighten it up to get it in. It's not very complicated. I'm probably making it sound more difficult than it is. I'm putting 2 fingers back here, and then I'm pushing with the gear and my fingers, and I'm sliding the gear into place. Once I'm here, I should be able to turn it, ratchet it, and everything should work just fine. It's worth noting that on the smaller lines, the IU1, the 3, the 7, the heads have 2 shields. One of them is tapped and one of them is countersunk. So you have a tap side and a countersunk side. Put the tap side in the back, feed the counter side in through the front. I left that screw on there, not really sure why. Put your screws in, and then get your 5/64 wrench and find your screw holes, put them in. Make sure you get one in there and started before you tighten any of them, both of them down. I've got one in started now. Now I'm gonna tighten the other one down if I can find the hole. That's it. Clean it off just for good measure. Make sure it still ratchets the way it should, and it does. So that's how you disassemble and reassemble the head on the IU series tools. Make sure you use a good vise or some kind of way to hold it still. Clean out the inside, any sand and dirt. Make sure you put a thin layer of lubrication back in it. Watch the springs on the way back in, and that's it. It's very simple. It should work for a long time with no problems. If this was helpful, let us know in the comments below. If you want to know more about Torque Light, check out the website in the video description below. Thanks a lot.